So, for the very first episode of our podcast, I've come to the east side of Glasgow and I'm on an allotment site. There are about 80 or so plots. In the background you can probably hear a mixture of the birds, but perhaps a distant rumble of traffic as well. There's a motorway nearby. The motorway was built a few years ago and threatened to get rid of all the allotments actually, but the local people made sure that didn't happen. And so now we have flowers, so you've got dahlias, hollyhocks, lupins, but then you've also got all the fruit and veg as well, so potatoes, raspberries, all sorts of soft fruits, loads of fruit trees, lots of cabbages, broccolis and leafy greens at the moment. There's not anywhere near as many allotments as there were when my grandfathers were alive, and just in that short time, 2 or 3 generations, the way that we consume food has completely changed. But not only food, other products as well. My granddad's first job was in a boot factory, sticking the heels onto boots. Now you'd struggle to find too many boot factories now in the UK. So the way that we live is completely different now. So as I stand here, sipping my Colombian fair trade coffee, what has all this got to do with fair trade? Well, a lot more than you might think. We now live in a world where virtually everything we eat, wear, consume has had some contact with other parts of the world and other people around the world. You cannot ignore the fact that we are now more connected with the rest of the world than we ever have been, not only in terms of technology, but in terms of responsibility as well. So what's the answer then? Well, the purpose of this podcast, not just this episode, but the whole series, will be to look at fair trade, look at the ways that we consume food, where it comes from, look at where our clothes come from, look at the industries that have closed here. We're going to join the dots between farmers in Malawi who grow our rice but yet don't have enough food to have breakfast before they go off to work, and between the ever-increasing number of people here in the UK who rely on food banks to feed their families each week. There is a connection, and we're going to explore that throughout these podcasts. Anyway, I finished my coffee. That's enough from me. From the sunny allotments here in the east of Glasgow, I hope you enjoy the first ever Rainbow Turtle Fair Trade podcast.
Hi, my name's Colin Scriven, and you're listening to the Rainbow Turtle Fair Trade podcast.
Here's Chief Turtle Liz Cotton.
Most of you probably know about Rainbow Turtle. We sort of have come about by a whole series of fortunate accidents, should we say.
She's talking to pupils from Greif High, St Paul's Primary and Foxbar, and local MPs Mhairi Black and Gavin Newlands.
When I first moved to Paisley, there were people already selling fair trade products around the place, like Maureen and various other people in their churches, in their schools, wherever. And I just happened to arrive here and start selling fair trade stuff for Tradecraft, and became a Tradecraft fair trader. And it was because of all the other people that were already working away, and we sort of got together and the whole thing grew quite a lot, and just sort of took over a little bit. So we ended up with rooms upstairs in the church here to store all the goods that we seem to have amassed and were taking over my house. And so a couple of friends got involved, and we moved in upstairs in the church. And it just so happened at that point that this shop became vacant. I don't know, we must have had about 30 people at the time that came and said, yes, we want to help, we want to volunteer, we want to support. And we still got about 30 volunteers on our books, some of whom have been with us right from the very beginning. Some have sort of retired for about the 3rd time and are not coming back. But many more are still coming through. So people who we talked to at their primary schools are now grown up or have never known life without the Fair Trade mark, because they were born since the Fair Trade mark came into existence, which is really gratifying when people come in and say, you came and talked to me at when I was 6, and are now sort of volunteering in the shop. The shop is really what you see. This is what people see when they come down the high street, but where we're going next is to our warehouse, which we share with JTS. So they're more of importing organisation, and so they import goods, whereas what we do is ship goods out again. We support churches, we support schools, and campaign within the Paisley Fairtrade Town, Renfrewshire Fairtrade Zone, and the Scottish Fairtrade Nation campaign. So we're involved in all of that. So it's hard to run the business when you're doing a lot of extra campaigning-y sort of things on the side, but we end up doing all of these things. It's really a family of volunteers and people and supporters who keep it going, and particularly the customers as well. We have amazing customers who come in all the time.
I'm Mhairi Black, and you're listening to the Rainbow Turtle Fairtrade podcast.
I recently attended the Scottish Fairtrade Forum's AGM and spoke to some long-standing campaigners and asked them to tell me about Fairtrade.
Hi, I'm Sophie. I'm the Community Engagement Officer for the Scottish Fairtrade Forum. I would say that Fairtrade is a way that lots of determined people around the world are trying to make sure that everyone who grows something or sells something gets paid a fair wage in safe conditions when they do so, because although it might seem strange, the world is actually very unfair and lots of people are treated very badly. I think we're at a point now with fair trade where we've got what the Fair Trade Foundation calls the fair trade generation, where there's been such a good amount of work done in schools that now most children who've been to primary school in the last 10 years will recognise the fair trade mark. But in a way, familiarity breeds contempt, isn't that the saying? But it's not contempt, but people think because they know about it and recognise it and have never been part of the campaigning, they think the battle's won, whereas actually it's far from over. And I think it's making sure that we do keep campaigning, like we talked about today, and making sure that's at the heart, and that there's still a goal to make fair trade should be the only trade, rather than a side sort of trade, and we need to make it fully mainstream and keep pressing for that rather than it being a sort of niche product. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges over the next few years.
My name's Christine Emmett and I'm Principal Teacher at St Elizabeth's Primary School in Hamilton. It's really just it's a help. It's a very big help. It's a global help. It helps everyone. At the minute, I think we have to be fair to our own local farmers, and from there I think we have to get our children involved more, and then I think we have to lobby the supermarkets and get them to get more fair trade on the shelves, because sadly in the last few years I think it's starting to dwindle. It's not as prominent as it used to be. The big boys have tended to get it in, and the local producers are way put to the back of the shelf. So I would like to encourage my children, tomorrow's consumers rather, to try and move that forward.
Barbara Slater from College Development Network. It's about respect for the contribution that everyone makes in their lives and in their work. It exists because we have so much inequality in the world, and we're trying to address that.
I'm Angela Oakley. I'm from Eastern Bartonshire, where I'm the chair of the Eastern Bartonshire Fair Trade Group. I'm here today as volunteer with the Scottish Fair Trade Forum, because I volunteer as the schools advisor with the Scottish Fair Trade Forum. Well, quite often I have to describe fair trade to children in school. They don't need much to know what's fair and what's not fair. I think we all know what's fair and what's not fair. Trade is exchanging things, so it's the fair exchange of goods, which we use to lift people out of poverty. It encompasses things like sustainability, equality, environmental protection. The biggest obstacle is the pace of change. We're just not going fast enough. We just seem to be swimming against the tide as we try to bring fairness and justice into trading systems. One of the biggest ones is getting people to buy fair trade. And the other is the power of the big corporations who are in it for profit, not people and planet. My favourite product, of course, would be chocolate, but I also like the Cool Schools Fairtrade cotton schoolwear. Cool Schools use Fairtrade cotton from India, and they stitch up in Mauritius in a sweatshop-free factory. It's not just Fairtrade grown, it's also Fairtrade sewn.
Let's leave the AGM for a while and find out some more about cotton producers in Uzbekistan. As Rainbow Turtle's education officer, I spend a lot of time each month doing research, and I often stumble across things I didn't know. So here's Ross with our very first Did you know?
For our very first Did You Know, we're looking at Uzbekistan, or more specifically, its cotton farming. Uzbekistan is one of the world's 7 stans and sits in Central Asia, bordered by 5 of the others: Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Afghanistan and Turkmenistan. It's got a population of around 31 million, that's about half of the UK's, and has vast areas of desert. A lot of the land that isn't desert is used for cotton farming, and the country is the second largest cotton exporter in the world, providing countries like China and Bangladesh with much of their supply. Cotton is of course not just used in the clothes we wear, but the bags and towels and curtains and cushion covers and gloves and, well, lots of other things. So it's surprising how little most of us know about where it comes from and how it gets to us. We even use this stuff to wipe makeup off our faces and to clean out our ears. I said we even use this stuff to clean out our ears. That's better. Often when we think of cotton products and fair trade, we think of the people that made the products, so the people that sewed our t-shirts, trousers or skirts together. But there are many, many farmers and workers that grow and produce the cotton too, long before it even gets to the factories and is turned into clothes or curtains. In Uzbekistan, cotton farming is controlled by the government, and most of the labour is provided by adults forced to work during the harvesting months. They're threatened with penalties, fines, loss of benefits, loss of jobs, and, for some older children, expulsion from school. Until very recently, young children were also forced to work, and their schools would get funds based on how hard they worked. International campaigning and protests have changed that, though it seems it may still go on in parts of the country. There are also lots of environmental issues too. For years now, the ROC has been used to supply water for farming, and it's now less than half the size it was back in the 1960s. As well as this, the pesticides used have caused a lot of environmental damage, and there are high levels of salt left in the soil as a result of the seawater being used for farming. Pesticides also cause health problems for farmers and workers, as they do in many countries around the world. So, apart from knowing about it and telling your friends or doing your own research, what can you do to make a difference? A great place to start is the Cotton Campaign website, www.cottoncampaign.org. There are lots of other easy things you can do. You can write letters or emails asking companies why they use cotton that isn't fairly traded, that isn't organically or safely farmed. You can encourage your school or your business to buy fair trade uniforms. You can join campaigns and sign petitions. These do make a difference, and there are fewer school-aged children working in cotton production as a result of campaigning. You can buy fewer things, or even better, nothing from big companies that exploit these farmers. And we can all think carefully about what we buy and where we buy it. There are more and more companies supporting fair ways of working, proving that it is possible to combine business and fairness. So hunt them down and tell your friends about them. For more information on this and many other issues, visit our ever-expanding website, www.rainbowturtle.org.uk.
My name is Lindsay and you're listening to the Rainbow Turtle Fair Trade Podcast.
Okay, so here we are in the office. This is the centre of the Rainbow Turtle universe. Lindsay, what's a typical day like for you in Rainbow Turtle? Is there a typical day?
Well, this is not really a typical day today because we're quite quiet just now, but during our mad periods, Fair Trade Fortnight, Christmas, it can be pretty hectic. You can be doing anything from packing boxes to, sending letters, answering the telephone, booking in sale or return stalls is a massive part of my job, especially during these times. The quiet times just now, it's just a case of trying to catch up on things like all the really, really boring stuff like data entry, that kind of stuff, which is what I'm doing just now.
What's your favourite fair trade product?
Oh, probably... At the moment, it changes all the time, but at the moment I'm addicted to the quinoa. It's an express quinoa, so it's really good for lunches. You just bung it in the microwave for 90 seconds and hey presto. So we get that from Tradecraft.
And what's your favourite memory of working with Rainbow Turtle so far?
Probably the things that stay in my heart is when we have producer visits. Last year we had Fonsho, the banana farmer, over for Fairtrade Fortnight. He was really fun. The kids loved him. They were getting his autograph and that was good.
What made you want to work for Rainbow Turtle?
What's made me stay in the job is the fact of what we do, you know, the people we help, and, you know, it's really important what we do, and I enjoy that. It's more than just a job to me. Rainbow Turtle isn't just my job now, it's my life.
So here I am now in our warehouse. We share the warehouse with JTS, also known as Just Trading Scotland, and I am surrounded by thousands of kilograms of Malawian rice. A few weeks ago we were lucky enough to have a visit from Howard Msukwa from Malawi. He's a rice farmer, and we got him together with some of the local school children, and he got to tell us about what a day is like for him in Malawi.
I live in the northern part of Malawi, in the district called known as Karonga. I am a smallholder farmer. I live in a village, and the leader of the village is known as the village head, the village headman. Most of the houses of the smallholder farmers are made of wood smeared with mud and grass thatched. But there are some farmers who have houses made of bent bricks and iron sheets. Normally, we live in extended families. So a father and mother plus other relatives would live in the same house. Yeah, it's quite enjoyable because that's how we know it. Because, for example, you find I live with my sister's children, maybe my uncle's children, because they have some problems to live with their parents, so they see it easy to live with me. I have to accept to live with them, and that's part of our culture anyway. As I said earlier, we are farmers, so our main work is on the farm. We have to wake up at around 3 a.m. when it is a bit cool, go to the fields, start working on the fields. Then we have a break at around 10 a.m. and then go back around 2 p.m. and then come home around 5. What makes us do all this is because temperatures in Karonga are very high. We usually work on the fields when the temperatures are above 35 degrees Celsius. We actually feel very tired. But you would imagine waking up at 3, doing the job all day, and then you go to bed at around 9 p.m., pretty sure knowing that when it will be 3 a.m., you have to be on your way to the field. It's not very enjoyable. It's tiresome, but we have no way out. We have to do that. Children have to go to school, so children have to wake up a bit later at around 5 so that they clean the plates, they sweep the house before they go to school.
That's the end of the first half of our very first episode. We'll have more from Howard in part 2, plus Mhairi Black and Gavin Newlands, and pupils from Gryfe High, St Paul's Primary, and our very own quickfire guides to the Millennium and Sustainable Development Goals.